Let's take a look at the NBA Draft 2024, but let's take a look at the draft from a Dynasty rookie ranking perspective. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I believe in Joe Hendry. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We're available on all platforms, so double bang it. Thumb it up. Leave your comments down below. So the dust has basically settled now on the NBA draft. There are still, this is always a tough thing to sort of get your head around, is all of the undrafted guys, who's signing a two-way, who's signing an Exhibit 10, who's on a summer league deal, who'll have a chance to be in training camp, who'll have a chance to be an undrafted guy making a roster, and that's tough, right? And just after I finished preparing for this show, I saw another signing come through that I hadn't seen initially, and that guy would have jumped up into my top 90. But yeah, in the end, a lot of these back-end guys, this doesn't really matter, but I am going out to 90 on this show in terms of draft prospects, and there are about 4 or 5 guys in that top 90 that currently don't have a team and haven't signed yet as far as I'm aware. So be aware of that. This Dynasty rookie ranking list will also be updated after Summer League. Remember that as well. That we get to see a little bit of these guys in a context that's, say, level different to where they've played before. See if the teams have different roles that they're trying to put them into. And there'll be some smallish changes that occur then. So, keep all that in mind. And then we have more of an idea of who can make rosters and who gets carved off the end of this list and all that sort of thing. This is mainly tailored towards category leagues. There is some points league utility to it. I do have a points league ranking list, but it's really not that different to how this list looks. There'll be some slight differences in some players and tiers, but as we know and as we've heard all along, this draft is not particularly strong. A tier 1 or tier 2, and I probably need to change the way I assess this next year. A tier 1 or tier 2 does not mean the same as previous years. And a lot of these guys, I think, will really struggle to find large roles this year or any point in their career, to be honest. Okay, I think that's going to be tough. In saying that, let's start flying through the back end of this list. My Dynasty ranks do go out to tier 15, but I'm only giving you the top 90 now because the back 40 guys, no idea if they're going to be on teams or not, and they're the end teams, the end tiers, and we'll move those around if necessary, but I'm not going to tell you about them because there's a chance that they don't sign at all. Starting off, tier 12. At number 90, it's Brandon Carlson, who went to Toronto. Now, I apologize again if some of these teams are incorrect, because A, numerous second-round picks were thrown all over the shop during the draft. I think I've got them all correct. And then it can be confusing or misleading or incorrect reports on some of the two-way / Exhibit 10 guys. But Brandon Carlson has gone to Toronto. I've got him at 90. Drew Pemba, older prospect, really amazing stats. Hasn't signed anywhere yet. I've got him at 89. Quincy Olivari to the Lakers. I've got him at 88. Mantas Rustevicius. I think that's how we say that one. He hasn't signed anywhere yet. I think he's a solid enough, at least two-way player. So we'll see if he ends up going. I've got him at 87. Babacar Sane has signed with the Jazz. He's at 86. It's not a two-way. It's an Exhibit 10. Alex Duka I think he's from Australia. He went to the Thunder. I've got him at number 85. Again, are any of these guys going to make any noise? Probably not, but it is a good idea to just sort of have a positioning of them. I like this guy at number 84 a little bit more. Malevi Leons, Dutch big man, the Dutch rudder himself. He's gone to the Thunder. And then Isaiah Stevens went to the Miami Heat. And that marks the end of No, it doesn't. So that's still tier 12. 82 is Mark Armstrong to the Nets. 81 is Isaac Jones to the Kings. Now, the guy that would have jumped in there is the Tiger, Jalen Williams from Auburn. He would have pushed in just ahead there or behind Mark Armstrong at 83 because I just found out that he has signed an Exhibit 10 with Denver. That's the other Jalen Williams, the Tiger. To begin tier 11, I've got Boogie Ellis at number 80. He went to the Kings. And then I had this guy rated relatively highly, Dylan Disu, I think it's Disu, from Texas. He has not signed yet. He's at 79 in my tier 11. This whole next page is all tier 11 guys. Number 78 is Tristan Enaruna to Boston. Number 77 is Ray J. Dennis to the Clippers. 76 is Zion Pullen, who went to the Heat. 75 is Yongshi Choi, who went to the Blazers. 74 is Denise Jenkins, who went to the Pistons on a two-way, I believe that one is. And number 73 is Blake Hinson, who went to the Lakers. And I think Hinson's on a two-way. I'm not certain about that one for the Lakers, but that is all of tier 11. Beginning tier 10, Jesse Edwards has signed a two-way with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Riley Minix, who I thought could have been drafted, has not signed yet, but I've got him at 71 still. If he does get signed, he will jump higher than this. Same with Judah Mintz, who hasn't signed anywhere as far as I'm aware. He does have some real efficiency problems, Judah, but there is talent there. So Minix and Mintz, I think they might be the last two players who I don't have a team for yet on this list at 71 and 70. Trenton Flowers, I've got at 69 giggity, going to the Clippers. The beginning of tier 9 is a player who was actually drafted, and that is Quentin Post, who went to the Golden State Warriors. So he's at 69, and then 68, and 67 in tier 9 is another drafted player from Kentucky, Antonio Reeves, who went to the New Orleans Pelicans, as best as I can discern from all the information that's out there. Today's episode is brought to you by the Game Time app with killer last-minute prices, or last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee. Game Time is undoubtedly the place to buy your tickets, and it takes the guesswork out of buying all Major League Baseball tickets. Game Time is an official ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, so when you're looking to get down to the old ball game, Game Time is the place for you to go. Last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, it's all there. The zone deal's great. You just choose like an area that you want to sit, and they just pick the exact seat for you, and you save money. As simple as that. Just put me in this area, mate. And they do it, they sort it, and you're good. Great stuff. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Okay, so we're starting tier 9 now. Quentin Post at 68 and Antonio Reeves at 67. And then the next page is all tier 9. Keshad Johnson signed with the Heat. I think that Keshad should have been drafted, maybe. But him going to Miami, I think is huge. And I think that's great for his development. And he will probably, I'm guessing, jump up from here. 65 was Pele Larson, who was drafted by the Heat. Not as high on him, but he's at 65. Anton Watson, who had some really interesting numbers from Gonzaga. He goes to Boston late in the second round. He's at 64. There's no other player like David Jones at number 63. He goes to Philadelphia on a two-way. Amal Traore, I thought he was a draftable player. The Lakers signed him on a two-way, so he's at 62. And then top 5 recruit legend, Justin Edwards, undrafted. Unbelievable slide. Goes to Philadelphia on a two-way. Their roster's very, very barren, obviously. Not that Nick Nurse is going to rely heavily on two-way guys, but we saw Ricky Council get minutes last season and looked all right. So guys like Jones and Edwards, there could be an opportunity of at least some description there. That's all tier 9. The next one is where we see a differentiation come in. The end of tier 9 is Cam Spencer, old legend from UConn. I believe he ended up in Memphis. Elite shooter, not much else, but the shooting's there. New Luke Kennard just dropped. And now we start tier 8. At 59, it's PJ Hall going to Denver. Not drafted, two-way guy. Bronny James, who went to the Lakers at 55, as we expected that he would go at that pick. He's at 58 on my Dynasty rookie rankings. And Farley Dante going to the Rockets. I've got him at 57. He signed a two-way there. Big man from Oregon. Harrison Ingram was drafted by the Spurs. I don't love his game from a fantasy perspective. He's a little bit older as well. That's why he's down here at 56. And then Jalen Bridges somehow went undrafted, but Phoenix snapped him up on a two-way. Pretty good move. Again, they don't love using the back-end guys all that much, but they're there. And if players get hurt, Bridges is someone who I think we'll be able to push into somewhat of a bigger role at some point. Sticking with Tier 8, 54 is Kevin McCullough, who went to the Knicks. 53 is Reese Beekman, who signed a two-way with the Warriors. 52 is the final pick in the draft, Ariel Hukporti, who was picked by the Knicks. Big man from Germany/Finland, I think, who played in Australia. A really interesting player, Hukporti. Tore his Achilles a year ago. The Knicks, maybe there's an opportunity there for him. We're talking about battling out Jericho Sims, which shouldn't be tough. He's an interesting guy. Dallas, which I believe this was a trade here, where the Mavericks and the Knicks traded with each other, and the Knicks got the pick that was Hukporti, and then the Mavs got the pick that was Ajinça. They're back-to-back in my list here. So that rounds out Tier 8. Melvin Ajinça, another French wing, going to Dallas at number 51. To begin Tier 7 for the Dynasty ranks, right at number 50, Oso Ighodaro, drafted in the second round from Marquette. He went to Phoenix. We said that Phoenix would or should be looking for a backup center. They didn't grab that guy in round 1, but they did here. With maybe Drew Eubanks not coming back, with maybe Bold Bol not coming back, with Yusuf Nurkic being Yusuf Nurkic, Ighodaro is not going to be a great fantasy guy, but there's at least a short-term option there. 49, the Pacers, Tristan Newton, another Connecticut player, played point guard instead of Steph Castle during his college time. An older prospect, which pushes him down, but he is there at number 49. We need to round out Tier 7, and we do that on the next page. And this is the first appearance of a first-round player, because this man should never have been picked in the first round, I don't think. We will see how it all plays out, but A.J. Johnson for the Bucks. First of all, he's not going to play. Doc Rivers hates anybody who is young, hates them. Never going to play them. Never. Now, at some point, for the prospects of these guys, we hope that Doc gets fired and that the Bucks wake up. And at some point, he would have to do that. But as soon as, a team heads towards a rebuild, Doc is going to boot out the door. We know that'll happen. It's just, AJ's not that good. And it's a long time to wait. He's at 48. 47, the Pacers with Enrique Freeman, who's like a really, really small ball center, elite rebound, a bit older as a prospect. Again, just someone to watch their longer-term situation. 46, Jamal Shed, who that pick came across to the Raptors as a part of the Davion Mitchell, Sasha Vezenkov, Jalen McDaniels deal. So Shed is in Toronto, and that is the final player in Tier 7. Shed, a really good defensive guy, really good steals player, but very short and not sure. Shed and Davion Mitchell on the same team is really interesting. 6'1", steal Meister point guards. And Mitchell's also a great example of maybe college steals like that don't always translate across. Starting Tier 6, this man was not drafted, but his stat translations were really good. Isaiah Crawford goes to the Kings on a two-way. A lot of knee injuries for him from Louisiana Tech, but he's at 45 in the beginning of my Tier 6. Jalen Wells to the Grizzlies. Doesn't do much apart from shoot, but there is a clear role there, and we can see the Grizzlies took a few shooters. Cam Spencer and Jalen Wells in the second round. They need that if they're going to have Zach Edey and Ja Morant on a good shooter. Just guys to chuck into that mix to shoot. 43 is another first-round player. It's Terrence Shannon Jr. I didn't realize this because when I went back and looked at it, actually, when I did my predictive mock, I got 7 of the first-round picks correct, and one of them was Terrence Shannon. I mocked him to Minnesota. He went to Minnesota. Part of the reason that Terrence Shannon is down low here in Tier 6 for Dynasty at number 43 is he's 24 years of age. He struggled with some of his shooting until last year where he was pretty good, but outside of volume scoring, I'm not really sure what else he does, and he's never going to be, I don't think, a volume scorer in the NBA. So he's one of those Lonnie Walker, right? Which is not a good fantasy player. That's why Terrence Shannon is down here at 43. That brings us through to another batch of guys, Tier 6. Now, I'm pretty stunned. I really do, as you know, value Trey Alexander. I cannot believe that a team just wouldn't I just didn't pick him at all. Now, I say that understanding, and sometimes it's hard to break that idea in your brain, that sometimes teams or players will be like, don't draft me. I don't want to get drafted now. I'd rather go and sign somewhere else afterwards. He's on a two-way with the Denver Nuggets, Trey Alexander, so that's possible. So someone going at 50 might be someone considered way worse than a two-way player or an undrafted player. But still, I would have thought we could have seen Trey go at least in the top 40. I thought he was way better than that. So I've got him at 42 in tier 6. Number 41, Adem Bona. We all love getting Bona, but do you love Philadelphia getting Bona? New Paul Reed. He's a little bit taller than Paul Reed, but he's not super big. Very fast, very athletic. As much as I do think Paul Reed has good fantasy potential, I actually think Bona has way better actual real life potential. And I think that's a very savvy pick. Where the Sixers getting him in round 2. He's at 41 on the Dynasty list. 40 is Tyler Kolek, who went to the Knicks. Kolek's one of those guys that everyone loves. You know what I call him? The car salesman. He's either going to be solid as a backup center, or a backup point guard, or he's going to not make it in the league, go back to his hometown and sell cars and go, remember me? I'm Tyler Kolek. Buy your Chevy Ute, or whatever you call it, truck. That's what he is. Hometown hero, legend. That's how I feel about what Kolek is. Pretty good passer. Probably never going to play with Juice McBride, Jalen Brunson ahead of him. Never going to, unless there's multiple injuries, but he's not going to play. But to be fair to him and to Leon Rose, it's better than having your bench stacked with Ryan Archer-Jacquino, Charlie Brown Jr., Mamadi Diakite. Much better than that. Just don't love him. Number 39 is Nikola Jurisic, who the Hawks traded up to get. I've got him at number 39. I thought he could have been a first-round player. Got some interesting statistical translations. The Hawks' rotation's very weird. This could be a one where he stays overseas for a year and then comes a year later. It's going to take a bit of time for this to work out if it does. I didn't like how far Max Christie's brother, Cam Christie, slipped. He's very young still. The landing spot's a little weird. He goes to the Clippers. Now, they've already had like a BJ Boston there forever and nothing good happening with that. But this is turning into a little bit of a different Clippers scenario. Is Paul George coming back? Kawhi's getting older. We assume James Harden's coming back. Norman Powell's 30 plus. I hope they get the opportunity for Christie to develop. It's just going to be really slow. He's at 38. And then 37 is another first-round player. It is Dylan Jones from the Thunder. Jones is older. He played a lower level of competition, but at some point, the statistical numbers are just something you can't ignore. It's really hard to see a long-term, big starting role for him in OKC. I just don't think that's got any chance of happening. But as with all these teams, sometimes things need to shake loose and guys get too good and they get traded for other players who make more sense. And Jones, well, I actually think he might struggle a bit in the NBA. The fact that he was traded up for, the fact that he was a first-round pick, and the fact that his stats are so good puts him in this spot at number 37. Today's episode is also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. It's the formula for winning championships. Maybe the formula is drafting Dylan Jones. I don't know. But Dylan Jones doesn't keep your ride or die alive. That's what eBay Motors does. It has everything that you need to maintain your vehicle, but not only maintain it, we don't want just status quo. We want to level it up. I'm sure they've got like acrylic stick of flames that you can put on there, but also roof racks, bumpers, headlights of the LED variety. I'm sure they've got other ones as well. Maybe halogen lamps. I don't know. But there's over 122 million parts, so whatever I suggest, there's a pretty good chance that eBay Motors is going to have it there. eBay Motors has the guaranteed fit, which means that the part is going to fit your car the first time, every time, or your money back. So it's easy to make your car the MVP. And what else do I need? Oh, you get huge wins. W. That's all we need. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to US customers. Okay. So we're still in Tier 6 here for Dynasty. Dylan Jones was the last guy that we talked about. Tier 6 is a very big tier in my Dynasty ranks. So there's like, I think 15, 16 guys in it. In fact, you know what? I can actually tell you how many are in there. In Tier 6, there are 15 players, and then there are 11 players in Tier 5. Very, very deep stuff. So at number 36, KJ Simpson. Undersized point guard from Colorado. He goes to Charlotte. Now, Charlotte has LaMelo Ball. They have Vucevic. They have Trey Mann. They just traded for Reggie Jackson. They've got Nick Smith, and they don't have a Murray Bailey. He's gone, or he's a free agent. They realized they had no point guards and said, all right, we're getting every point guard now. Simpson has the ability and some of the statistical profile stuff to maybe become like an Emmanuel Quickly undersized guy, a Fred VanVleet undersized guy. I don't think that he does it. He's a little bit older, but there are some interesting statistical things there with KJ Simpson. Number 35 is Bobby Clintman from, this is what annoys me, ESPN, if you're listening. You go through and you have your list of draft picks and all that sort of stuff, and you'll say, let's say KJ Simpson, and we'll say KJ Simpson, Colorado. Then we'll go Bobby Clintman, Sweden. Bro has not played in Sweden for years. Last season, he played at Wake Forest. This season, he played for Cairns. KJ Simpson, USA. Bobby Clintman, Sweden. Or just put their team. Why is it a binary of college or country? So if Bobby Clintman went to Wake Forest, would it say, and last year in the draft, would it have said Wake Forest and not Sweden? It say he played for Cairns. Anyway, Clintman is a player that some thought might go much higher than this last year. He's turned into a solid shooter, really good transition guy, power forward with some limited upside. Oh, that's not true. Some limited parts to his game that maybe can develop. He heads to Detroit, which we know their forward situation was Isaiah Stewart. Now it's, let's see what Asar Thompson can do. Now it's Simone Fontecchio. Does Ron Holler play the 4, which he did in high school? They're building up some forward depth. Number 34 is Tristan da Silva. I know he's a top 20 pick. He's 23 plus. He shoots pretty well, but we're not talking elite, and I'm not really sure what else he's going to do. He also, I'm not sure how much he can share the court with Banchero and Wagner. I think he's older than Franz and Paolo. I hated the pick, so I'm not putting him any higher. 34. 33 is AJ Mitchell. The Thunder made a million trades, as they always do. AJ had really great stats at Santa Barbara. Very interesting translation numbers. He's another guard. Now, they've got Nikola Topic, which we'll talk about later. They obviously got rid of Josh Giddey, but Caruso and Kaysen Wallace and Shea are there. It's going to be a long road for AJ, but again, I believe in some of the stuff that he does. Number 32 is a first-round player. It is Keyshawn George. We're almost into the top 30 of this list anyway. Keyshawn George went to Washington, 6'8" shooter who I'm not sure does anything else. There are certain parts of the formula that I use. It's my valuation of the player, statistical translations for the player, consensus big board rankings of about 50 different big boards to get an idea of where other evaluators view the player, and then the draft pick value of a player. Because draft pick value, while I can say I really like this guy and he's slid, but it doesn't matter because I think he's better than that, there is a value in draft pick because a team is more likely to give extra chances and invest extra resources into a guy they pick at 6 versus a guy they pick at 36. So even if we think the guy at 36 is better than the guy at 6, the team will put more resources and give more opportunities and more chances to the higher draft pick. So that has to be a part of the formula. So Keyshawn George, if he wasn't picked where he was at 26 and he was picked at 40, he would be probably down at like 45 on this list. And number 31 is Baylor Shireman, who does have a pretty interesting fantasy game. He is older, like 23 and a half, 24. He can do a lot of different things. The opportunity in Boston's not super, super high at this point, but he can become a Kyle Anderson type sixth man that fills in and has good fantasy numbers. This is all still tier 6, but I believe that is the end of tier 6. It is, and now starts an 11-man tier 5. Number 30 is Juan Nunez. Decent-sized point guard. Played at Ratio Farm with Pacom Dadier. Not really sure he can shoot, but he can pass. And he can pass, and he can run a pick and roll, and now he is on the team with Victor Wembanyama. Yes, of course, they have Steph Castle. I don't think Steph Castle is a point guard. Why did I say point guard like that? Because I don't know. But that's okay. Trey Jones is still there, but they don't have the point guard of the future, I don't think. I don't think Nunez is either, but there is at least opportunities here for him. Speaking of Pacom Dadier, they're back-to-back in my rankings. Dadier is at 29. Not sure he's going to come over this year. Another French wing. Good size. I think there's shooting upside in him. He's young. He's got the build. He's got the size. He's got the positionality. He's not a bad rebounder. There is some defense there. A little bit hard to judge. Played for Saint Quentin. I'm sure that's not how it's pronounced. But Dadier is at 29. Number 28 is Ryan Dunn. The offense is horrendous. But the steal and block numbers actually out of control. Now, block numbers translate not bad coming from college. Steal numbers don't translate well. Well, no, let me rephrase that. Steal numbers translate into a player being useful, but they don't always translate into good steal numbers. But when it's someone who builds their whole game on it, they're usually pretty solid. He was also an elite rebounder, but the man averaged 13 points per 40 minutes. If there's a team where it might work, it's on a team where you've got Booker, Beal, and Durant, but they're not going to be there forever. So Dunn could be a guy that has to be in very specific situations, and they, a worse defender, Josh Okogie, but they've tried it, and it didn't work that well. But Dunn's defensive numbers are just ridiculous. So he's at 28. 27 is the first pick of the second round, who went to Toronto, Jonathan Mob. I think actually I've been saying Mogbo. I think it's Mobo. But an undersized big man who scores, rebounds, passes, steals, doesn't shoot, doesn't block shots. It's a weird fit. There's no real minutes. I don't think he can play the 4. There's a Lincoln Pirtle already there. But there is talent. The stats are really good. I think he's going to be a guy that does work into a rotation role at some point. So Mobo is there at 27. This is the Raptors section because number 26 is Uri Shomshe from Cameroon, the NBA Academy in Africa as well. The stats are hard to judge from him. He was like the 57th pick in the draft, but he is the youngest player in the draft. He doesn't turn 19 until basically New Year's Eve. And size, rebounding, shooting, shot blocking, the combination is all there for that to work out. And this is a long-term thing that may never work out. But honestly, when you see the names around here or the names even above, this draft is not very good. We know that. We say it all the time. So I think taking that flyer on Shomshe, because I think it can really work out, and he's got a long runway to get there. He's got guys like Baylor Shireman are basically his dad. That's how young he is. So Shomshe is an interesting one. And then the other one, at 25, is the Raptors' first-round pick, Jacoby Walter, who doesn't have a very good fantasy game. They picked him at 19. There were a few other guys I would have taken in that spot. Very inefficient shooting coming out of Baylor. Not really sure what else he does, but the three-point volume could be really interesting. He could turn into a solid enough rotation player. His new nickname's already there. It's Gary Trent III. This is what he is. He's Gary Trent III. We know who he is. Maybe he surprises me, but that's a guy whose fantasy relevance, Trenner, was based on getting 2 steals a game. If Jacoby Walter can get to that, then sure, that's really interesting. But he sits at 25. I didn't like that pick that much. We're still in tier 5 here. The dildo, John Furphy, he slid down to pick number 35. I had Furphy in that top 15 range. I just think that his size, his shooting, his cutting, rebounding, I think he's a better defender than you think. He's young as well. I thought it made a lot of sense, but he slid a long way. And the reason, I thought it made sense to have him in that lottery. The NBA thought he was going in the first round because they invited him to the green room, but that didn't happen. So he slid a long way down to the Pacers at 35. He's at 24 in my Dynasty ranks because I still believe in him. The translations aren't awesome. They're not superb. That's why he's at 24 and not at 17. But that's where he sits in tier 5. Number 23 is Dalton Connect, who a lot of people think slid to the Lakers at 17. Steal of the draft, what a slide. To me, that wasn't a slide because I didn't have him in my top 20. So that's, when I look at this and go, the Lakers have got this top 10 guy, I go, I don't think so. And very clearly, the NBA on this one agrees with me because he wasn't a top 10 pick. He wasn't really thought of that way. He is 23. He's a late bloomer. But part of my issue is that, I see Lakers fans, and look, you know this, Lakers fans, very rational, very sane. Always. Every one of them. You guys are switched on and unbelievably level-headed. Almost as level-headed as Raptors fans. It's a close balance. But I've seen a lot of Lakers fans talking about Connect. Man, we've got him. A big 3-and-D shooter. And, nah, you don't. He's not a D. He's not big. He's a pretty good shooter. He's not elite of a shooter. He was a scorer in the SEC. And I just don't think that's ever really going to work for him in the NBA. Can he be a rotation player? Yep. But I've got him at 23. Again, you got to look at the basis. I was down on him. I was closer to how the NBA viewed him than how most other scouting things did. And that's why he's down at this spot. 22, Eve Missy going to the Pelicans. I think there's a chance that Missy starts immediately for the Pelicans and plays a 21-minute a night role while Nance cleans up and gets extra minutes. I don't think he's ever going to develop anything offensively, but the blocking, the rebounding, some field goal percentage, there's interest in that. Overall, the ceiling is relatively limited fantasy-wise because of the lack of offense. I reckon best case with Misi is a better shot-blocking Steven Adams, which is not a bad player. It's a pretty good player, in fact. But does he ever get there? Debatable. He's at 22. Cody Williams is at 21. The draft capital helps going at pick 10. The age helps. All that stuff helps. His numbers translating out of Colorado, not very good. Absolutely no defensive numbers, no rebounds, no assists. He scored at low volume and low usage. The translation was really, very bad. I worry that there is some expectations placed on him that aren't exactly accurate. That's why he's at 21. But if you wanted to go higher than him, and he's still in tier 5 here, obviously, and interchangeable with a lot of different guys, I totally understand it. But the numbers for Cody Williams coming out of Colorado, not super strong from a fantasy point of view. At number 20, it's Jalen Tyson, who went to the Cavs. Now, his numbers coming out of Cal were unbelievable from a fantasy perspective, Tyson. He ends up in Cleveland. I wouldn't say that there are massively abundant opportunities, but we also know that Mitchell and Garland, who knows how long they last together, who knows how long they actually last on the court. And then they were running with old mate, who I like, Craig Porter Jr., quite a bit last year. And Tyson's probably more of a 2-3 than a 1, but it can handle a little bit. He could ostensibly be a Karis LeVert replacement, I think. And a player who went 20 in the real draft. I've got him at 20 here. Actually, a little bit of scope to move up. A little bit older, but I like it. One of the big sliders, Isaiah Collier. I've moved him down to 19 in my Dynasty ranks because he was around, I think, 14 or something before the draft. But the fact that he went all the way down to 29, I've got to factor in that into it somehow. There's got to be something in there. Add to the fact that he can't shoot, can't hit free throws. The passing is good without being super, super elite. I still believe that he has got starting point guard upside. So if you wanted to take him ahead of anybody else, and this is the cutoff, I believe, for tier 5, the last guy here. If you wanted to push him into the next tier, I think it makes complete sense. But draft capital, and like I said before, draft capital does play a role. Tier 4 is actually really pretty small, and I've got 3 players in it. The Denver Nuggets traded up for Deron Holmes. I've got him at number 18. He's in tier 4. Holmesy, ridiculously high numbers, high usage player. Replacing Jokic, can he get high usage off the bench behind Nikola? Maybe. Remember, you don't always stay at that same team, and the beat out there is free agent DeAndre Jordan and Zeke Naji. He could be in the rotation literally immediately. Not thinking he'll be good immediately, but he could be in the rotation. 17 is Kyle Filipowski, who fell quite a bit. He ends up in the second round, going to Utah of all places. There are obviously some wild stories going on about him and his girlfriend and brainwashing and whatever it is. That is allegedly some of the reasoning for the slide. I don't know how true that is. But Filipowski, my major problem with him is the negative wingspan because he blocks shots, he gets rebounds, he passes, he shoots. In Utah, okay, so there's Taylor Hendricks there. There is Walker Kessler. There's John Collins. Kessler, Collins, how committed to them are the Jazz? Probably not that much, given what happened with Kessler. Hendricks and Filipowski could work together, I guess. I still like it despite him going to the second round. At number 16 is Jared McCain. Number 16 and Jared McCain will just always be associated with him. I had him in my mock draft at 16. I predicted he would go at 16. He went at 16, and now he's at 16 in my dynasty list. Shooter doesn't defend super well. Bit undersized. Next to Maxey, not really sure how that works. Solid enough passing, but a good enough rotation player. And now we start tier 3. Zach Edey, I've got at 15. He went at pick 9, which is like 15 to 20 spots higher than I thought he would go. I did not rate him as a top 20 player. If he is able to play 28 minutes a night, which I don't think he will, but if he is way higher than this. But this is me not expecting him to do that. This is a lot of other people not expecting him to go that high. But if you want to weight the Grizzlies' valuation of him higher, which is a totally reasonable thing to do, you could easily push him right to the top of tier 3, maybe even into tier 2. Number 14 is Superman. Khalil, pronounces it Khalil Ware for the Heat. I don't think that he would start next to Bam opening night, but maybe. He's also got a really, he's a very, I can't wait for him to tear up Summer League, actually. He's got some very, very interesting things to his game. Some dribbling, some shooting, some passing. He's 7 foot tall. He's unbelievably athletic. And there's no one really battling for backup minutes at the very least. Number 13 is my man, Tyler Smith. I hate that he went to Milwaukee, and I will almost definitely move him down from here after the Summer League adjustment. I thought that he was a top 10 player in this draft. He had 100% the best statistical translations out of the G League guys, without question. He's the only G League guy that could shoot. It's a shocking situation where Bazalis, Holland, Almansa, Smith, they all play basically the same position. It just never worked. But he couldn't have gone to a worse spot. The thing, again, that I will hold out hope for is that Doc Rivers isn't there long term and that Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez won't be around forever. And then, as I said, Tyler Smith, when you think about it, when Brook Lopez is not there, Tyler Smith pairing with Giannis, literally unbelievable pairing. I think that's unbelievable. But I have to move him down because draft equity is way lower. So he's down at 13. So I had him much higher. I had him 7 or 8. So he's down. But I still believe in him. Number 12 is Carlton Bub Carrington. Carrington is still in tier 3 here. Carrington has a shot maybe to start immediately in Washington. I think he'll be relatively bad initially. That's what point guards are like. Very inefficient will be the guess, but pick and roll guy, can shoot, got size, can pass. Could be the Wizards' point guard of the future. There's a chance of that. So he's at 12. 11 is Devin Carter. It's the steals and rebound numbers that translate across so well. The shooting numbers, I'm not really convinced there. The problem is I know that Davion Mitchell's gone, but their team is still relatively sort of loaded there. It's Fox, there's Herter, there's Monk, there's Keon Ellis who started last year. So where is Carter sort of fitting in? Maybe down the line here we get some extra minutes developing, but he's at 11. At number 10, I've got Tijan Salin going to the Hornets. Could start opening night. I think it'd be really bad for fantasy straight away. His defensive numbers weren't really there at Cholet. His shooting is up and down for sure, but he's big. He gives big effort. He's a bit of time away, but that value is there. I've got him at 10. Number 9, I've got Steph Castle. The fantasy translations are really quite poor for him. Usage not that high. Didn't shoot that well. Didn't generate big steals or blocks or assists or rebounds. The draft capital of pick 4 pushes him up. I think it was wrong to pick him at 4. And I don't think he's ever going to be an awesome fantasy guy. He'll be fine, but not awesome. Not what you'd expect out of a 4th pick. And then to round out tier 3, it's Zachary Rissochet, who went at pick number 1. I know. I've got him at 8. I wouldn't have picked him at 1. Not really sure what he does that's going to stand out. If Jason Tatum is like the best Rudy Gay, Rissochet is like the worst. Like a guy that's average at everything, but well below average, and then can't pass. So I don't know. Maybe he turns into something, but he just doesn't do it for me. So he's at 8. That's it. He's at 8. Starting tier 2, number 7 is Matas Buzelis. His blocks is probably what pushes him into this tier. I don't know if he can shoot at all. I don't know if he's going to be able to coexist with Giddey or Vooch, but Vooch shouldn't be there long term. I have a bit more faith in him than Rissochet because at least I know there's something he does do well or could do well. But yeah, he's at 7. Let's go into the final 6 guys. At number 6, he is in tier 6, tier 2, even though he's going to miss his entire rookie year. Nikola Topic. And I saw one of the funniest things I've ever seen. The video of him talking where someone said that Nikola Topic's voice sounds like the voice that they put on to hide your voice when you're doing like an interview. It's the deepest voice you will ever hear in your life. Please go and find it. I've got him at 6. The Thunder situation, not ideal. The injury, not ideal. But the translations for him, rebounds, assists, some threes, great free throws, that's all made really well for fantasy. You will not have to take him at 6. He will slide in Dynasty quite a bit because of the injury and because of the situation. But also look at this, like Josh Giddey was there 3 years and he's somewhere else. Things change. Number 5 is Rob Dillingham. Dillingham had really strong translations. He will be a bench guy this year, I would guess, but maybe as early as next year as a starter. Volume scorer. Next to Ant, the usage becomes a little bit more iffy, but I think there's a lot there with him. He's at 5. And then to round out tier 2, it's Donovan Clingan going to Portland. Now, Clingan's upside, I think, is limited But what he can do is be a real good shot blocker, rebounder, field goal percentage player. We still got to figure out what the hell's going on with the centers. But he sits at 4. And the top 3, all in the same tier. Ron Holland at 3. I believe there is star upside in Ron. Absolutely not touching him in redraft leagues this year. I don't know how it's going to work with him and Asar, and stuff can change over the next couple of weeks. I don't know. But I believe in Ron Holland's talent. Number 2 in tier 1 is Reed Shepherd. This is easy. He hits threes. He passes. He scores. He gets steals. It's also going to take time because he will not start this season. He might start next season, but he won't start this season. And the guy that will start this season at number 1, be number 1 all the way through, is Alex Sarr. He's going to start. He's probably going to top out best case in like year 4 at 20 and 9 with 1.7 blocks and 1.7 threes with 3 assists and a steal. That's fine. But that's what I mean. Like, he's good. He's not awesome. He's not great. He's not, wow, we've got the number 1 player of all time potentially sitting in Dynasty rookie like last year. So Alex Sarr sits at number 1. Not that you're shocked with that at all. And that is the Dynasty rookie rankings. Again, there will be adjustments. These are the immediate reactions after the second round of the draft and the first wave of signings. Apologies if any of them are wrong. If there's someone you think that I missed or need to adjust, as you know, you can just drop that in the comments. Try to be respectful, because if you be rude about it, you know what? I'll just be rude back. And then we go back and forth and it achieves nothing. Actually, just waste my energy. Maybe I won't respond. Respectful comments and discussion, always welcome. Go ahead and do that. Top 90 there. We'll see how far we end up putting other stuff out once we hear more players sign, but I think that should cover most of it. Guys, you got to thumb up. You got to subscribe. You leave your comments. Also, we are done. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.